8.9 perfect squares, part 2. So we're going to finish off this lesson with problems where we're solving equations, and it says solve perfect square equations. And the way that you solve anything with perfect squares is by square rooting, okay? These equations are no different. Here's what you want to do. You want one side of the equation to be a perfect square. Well, that one is. It is the quantity of b minus 7 squared. That's a perfect square because it's something times itself. So here's what you do. Like I said, you square root both sides. It's just like solving any other equation. If you square root one side, you got to square root the other. So when I square root the left, the square root and the square, you know, they are opposite things. They cancel each other out, and you're left with b minus 7. And on the right, here's the important part. This is an 8th grade standard. Everybody has to know this in the 8th grade. When you square root in an equation, the square root of a number is the positive or negative of that. So the square root of 36, you must consider it is plus or minus 6. Okay? Now on the I step for 8th grade, it will not be this complicated where there's that b minus 7 on the left, but I will tell you, they'll have stuff like this. They'll have maybe x squared equals 36, and you've got to understand that when you square root both sides, you must say the answer is plus or minus 6. All 8th graders have to know that part of it. Okay, now you guys have to continue on here. You've got to understand on the right, there's really two values on that side. So to solve for b, you're going to add 7 to both sides. And here's what I want you to think. If it would be positive 6 plus 7, my answer is 13. If it would be negative 6 plus 7, your answer would be 1. So your two answers are 13 and 1.
Would that be in set notation?
Yeah, you could do that in set notation, 13 and 1. Okay, or 1 and 13. Somebody asked the other day about how they'd want that. Yeah, probably want the lower number first, but honestly, I'm good. I'm happy that you got both answers. So, yeah. If it's a negative 36, are you looking ahead to problems in the thing, or are you just asking? Good question. What would happen if we tried to do the square root of negative 36? Can we do that yet in Algebra 1? No, so no solution. Good question. I thought maybe there was one in the homework like that. Yes, if the 36 was negative and you got your squared equaling that negative, then you definitely say no solution. Yes, there is. Okay, well, good call, Maitri. Good. All right, now, F. Couple things going on here. X squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 25. I'm going to tell you right now, you could go about this two ways, but since we're in a section on perfect squares, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to check that trinomial and see if it's a perfect square trinomial, because you know what? 25 is, isn't it? Okay. So if it works out that this is a perfect square trinomial because 25 is, we're going to solve it like the last one. I'm going to show you what to do if it's not in just a minute. Right now we're focusing on this. Question 1. Is x squared a perfect square?
Yes.
So what's the square root? X. Question 2. Is 16 a perfect square? Yes. So what's its square root? 4. Question 3. Is the middle term 2 times x times 4? Yes, because that's 8x. So there you go. Really quick factoring. Over here it's going to be x and a 4. Who can tell me what sign's going to be in the middle?
Plus.
Plus, because of that plus, and it's squared. And that equals 25. Now it looks exactly like the one on the left. I've got a perfect square equals a perfect square. That's awesome. square root it. X plus 4 equals plus or minus 5. Subtract 4. X equals, okay, if it's plus 5 minus 4, 1. If it's minus 5 minus 4, negative 9. Those are my two solutions. Okay, now, we don't have a lot of time, but I got some really, really important stuff to tell you regarding these problems. Okay? Does everybody have the blue written? Because I got to pull up, I think I need to show you another example really quick. Everybody got the blue done? Okay, let me show you what happens when you face something like this. I'm going to kind of piggyback off of this one right here. Okay, 3. B minus 7 squared equals 3. Is 3 a perfect square?
No.
Absolutely not. Let me show you what happens if this is in your problems. Square root, square root. On the left, same as before, B minus 7. And on the right, do not use a calculator. You're going to tell me that the square root of 3 on this equation is really plus or minus the square root of 3. That's a number. That's legitimate. You're allowed. And then you're going to add 7 to both sides. And you're going to tell me the answer is 7 plus or minus the square root of 3. And you're done.
I like that.
That could happen. If that number is not a perfect square, that's what you do. Okay, back up to this one really quick. If this equation was not a perfect square trinomial, anybody got any ideas what I would do?
Stop. You just stop there.
No, you don't stop.
Just factor the whole thing. Each individual thing.
If it's not a perfect square trinomial, how can I factor the whole thing? How do we
you
factor?
Square root each thing.
No, you do not square each. It's a set. You can't tear it apart.
2 sets of parentheses?
2 sets of parentheses, but what first? Yes, did you hear that? If this was not a perfect square trinomial, you got to bring your 25 over and make it equal to 0, then factor. Okay? Because that's what we had to do on all the others. All right, I think I've covered all the different kinds of things that you could face, hopefully.